sometime in September. If this is postponed for a vote after September, quite possibility that this wind farm would have to run under the new setbacks. It will have to adjust some turbines, you know, unless there's some other legal move. If they approve it prior to September, they don't have to change any setbacks.
Why couldn't you use the legal move that they have to be within a certain distance from any home?
There already is, but the setbacks now have changed from a property line, not just from somebody's home. That changes the whole equation. It goes from your property line, which ice throwing, you know, he talked about ice throwing. In the old setbacks, the turbines could be a minimum of 559.5 foot from somebody's property line. Ice throw in their report is up to 853 feet from the turbine. That's going to land 200 plus feet onto my property. I'm out of my woods cutting firewood and I can get hit in a chunk of head.
So it's nothing you can
and that's
propose
okay.
in the government.
If they move it from the property lines, that thing will be far enough away where it can't sling and hurt me or throw onto a road. That's the deal. Plus, it's for your property rights. So at least the Senate made the right move in the state of Ohio. Finally, but the setbacks aren't far enough.
They're far enough.
They're not far enough.
Yeah, I also want to say that we have been in the Commissioner's office at the meetings, time and again, and Dunlap and Hintz and Bauer said they would not give this company, after it's approved, down in Columbus, they're going to come back up here and talk to our commissioners. That's their next move. And they're going to beg them for a tax abatement, you know, for a break. And our commissioners, Bowers, Hintz, and Dunlap, said they would not do that. So we have to write to our commissioners. We have to go to the meeting on Tuesday, 9 o'clock, and Thursday, 9 o'clock. Show up and say, you know what, we really want you to hold to your word. We don't want these guys coming into here and county. So we've got to do the footwork. We've got to go and move and write to these guys. If you don't go, write to them. It is our responsibility. It is our lives and our health as a state. We can do this.
I'm concerned about the health because of what my family has gone through. I've seen my sons and my daughter-in-law argue because they weren't getting sleep. I've seen my grandkids suffer because of not getting any sleep. So I'm a health issue man. I think that in 10 years, if we don't do something about the wind industry, have you ever heard on TV they come out with mesothelioma, the tobacco, and the asbestos? How many of you seen an advertisement? If you have any of these, been around any of these, call this number, and then I think in 10 years you will see come on your TV. If you have lived within 1 1/4 of a mile of the wind turbine, call this number. We'll help you get some settlement because we know you've had sleep deprivation. We know you've had health problems, and it's connected to sleep deprivation. You can't. Your body cannot function without sleep, folks. If you don't get the amount of sleep, eventually it's going to catch up with you. You might be able to go a month. You might be able to go 6 months. But eventually, if you don't get a good night's sleep, your body will not repair itself, and you will have health problems. The World Health Organization has documented that diabetes sends in earlier. There's people that the strokes come in early. Your heart problem with it. You know, some of us here wear a CPAP machine at night. It's because you need to get that sleep, and the CPAP machine is to make you or allow your body to sleep. If you're waking up all the time, you don't want to get rest. They'll tell you you're going to have heart disease if you don't get good rest. It's the same thing in winter. If we allow these things to come all across the United States, there's going to be health problems, and it's not everybody. I don't want to say if you got a wind turbine within half a mile, and your body is such that you can put up with motion sickness, if you can put up with different things, different people affects different ways. You might be able to have a wind turbine within half a mile and not be affected nearly as bad as your neighbor. He might be 3/4 of a mile away and have more problems. It's an individual, how your individual body accepts noise at night, how well you can hear, and other things like that. So I think, and if the World Health Organization has been convinced that they need to be a mile and a quarter away from where you sleep, I think we should accept the World Health Organization, or at least look into it and get some health studies and get some people to do the studies. My son has offered his house to Carl Clinic in Champaign, Illinois. If they want to do sleep studies, to come to his house, hook these people up and see if they can sleep in that house. But what I'm telling you is, if the Carl Clinic car pulls in front of my house, my son's house, they'll probably shut the dang thing off and that'll be as quiet as a mouse. Because the wind turbine industry got a lot to lose, by proof that there are health problems with noise. So they'll have to pull in his garage and shut the door and then put all the wires on these folks and see what they can get done. But he's willing to sacrifice that house if they would be willing to come in there and do some sleep studies. Are there further questions? Yes, sir.
I've been told it's true, I don't know if it is or not, that these wind turbines actually have cameras on top of them.
Have what?
Cameras.
Cameras?
Township trustee in Van Wert told my wife that they did. So I think that's also a serious invasion of privacy.
I don't know that.
I didn't know.
I don't know.
But the township trustee
I tell you
told
what's
me
not on
that
top
in
of
Van
them.
Wert, they do have them on there.
I tell you what's not on top of Vermillion County, and that is the beacon light to protect the FFA. The Federal Aviation Agency says you must have a beacon on every one of these towers. In Vermillion County, they violated that. When electricity went off, there was no beacons in that wind turbine area. The people in the FAA threatened to sue the company for not doing it. The county board refused to sign the lawsuit against the wind turbine people to force them to put lights on their turbines. And that didn't come to light until a citizen group discovered that when electricity was off, it's dark and there's no beacons on top of these things. So I think they're scrambling now to put them on, but they should have been fined. They should have known that was a FAA, Federal Aviation Administration law, but that's what they get by with. The counties are refused to, and that's what they do with the Sheriff's Department refusing to help claim the sound problems. They make the citizens do all the work. I'm not here because I'm getting paid. I drove 477 miles to come to these good folks' house because I think you folks are the one that need to hear what my family been through, and that's why I'm here. And I think that it's in your hands. I can do nothing about what happens in Ohio. I'm not a resident of Ohio, but I've come a long way because I've seen what my family's gone through, and I hope you can prevent what he's had to go through in your communities and in your town. Yes.
I'm not for it or against it, but there's a school where you're just southwest of here, it has two of them. They're not 5,000 feet away from the school.
Well, I'll bet
They're just little bitty ones.
I'll bet they're probably 1/10 or 2/10 of a megawatt. They're not large enough to. I mean, that's like comparing a
Cyrus.
An egg to a piece of sauce.
I mean, it's just the size of these things. How tall are they? Every how tall?
They're pretty good size. You can save down 30 quite a ways.
They are the little ones though. In Ada, farther down, they're bigger. They got 4 of them in Ada because I work in Lyman every day. I drive it, which is right around 100 miles away. But in Ada, they got some bigger ones. They're not quite the giants. And they got one right there by a school too. And they got one turbine. It hasn't worked for a month and a half. Every time I drive by it, they sit still.
I did talk to the president of the Lakeland School District. It's a junior college, 30 miles north of me. They have 2 of them. They tried to generate electricity to replace power electricity, and it was part of their electronic schooling or whatever. And the school board will tell you that the junior college district, they have never paid for themselves. They have never generated enough electricity to be economically feasible, and most of the time they need maintenance. Right now they're looking at a $300,000 repair box on a gearbox, and they don't think they're going to repair it. They're going to take the doggone thing down. To get enough $300,000 of electricity out of that thing in the next 10 years, and it lasts about 10 years, which is the depreciation of the wind turbine. I think it'll last about 10 years, and you really got to make this problem for us at all. I don't think they're economically feasible. If they had to build them and pay for them themselves, we would never see them in this country. It's subsidies, and
It's a politically correct thing.
exactly. They're free, and they're clean, and they're neither in my opinion. They're not free because of subsidy, they're not clean because of money. Yes.
About that, we're going to compare apples to apples, and I understand what you're saying. Before, I would look around like there's one in Norwalk that never works, that little turbine. And then I know the one that 2 schools go over, it's on Route 30, and it just went for, yeah, Wentford has 2 of them. Right, and Huron had 2 or 3 of them, and one of them came apart here 2 years ago, and they had to kind of shut it down, because they would put it that close to school. Those are magnificently small. We went to Van Wert. Van Wert has something similar to what's going to be installed here, but still we're going to go apples to apples. The ones in Van Wert, the center of the turbine blade is at 328 feet, which is 30 foot higher the tower is than the ones that are going to be placed here. The overall height was very similar. It was like 495 feet. This was going to be 498. The bottom of the blade would come 187 foot off the ground. These will come 107 feet off the ground. These have 383 foot diameter sweep on these propellers. It's 2.4 megawatts. The ones in Van Wert were 1.6 or something. They're not. It's not apples to apples. It's like an apple and an orange. And we went. A guy, Wally Lever, and I went to Van Wert, and he was surprised at how noisy they were. And they're not going to be anywhere the size. They got 34 of these running. I'm waiting to go up to Ithaca, Michigan. They got 34 of these Nordic 117s online, supposed to be running. And I'm waiting for like 17, 18, 30 mile an hour winds. I want to go up there and hear these things. And that I will say, now I've got an apple and I'll know what I'm listening to.
This flyer that the folks generated, this is drawn in scale. If you see these transmission lines, and I think those are pretty doggone big transmission lines that you see across the country, and drawn next to that is a scale of the wind turbines they're proposing here. These are massive, folks. This is the size that, if you haven't driven next to one, you won't believe how big these things are. It's massive. The wingspan of a 747 jet is the same wingspan as these things here. Those blades are running at 175 mile an hour as they go by at 27 mile an hour. So you can imagine the wind that they're creating and the force that they're creating is phenomenal.
The generator is what makes the noise, correct?
Absolutely.
A portion of the noise. And so the more megawatts it's putting out, it's just going to be that much bigger of a generator and produce that much more vibration and...
They think, I mean, the history shows that the 6.6 megawatts and 0.8 megawatts of Bloomington, Illinois don't make near as much noise as the 1.6. And the 1.6 probably not going to make as much noise as 2.2. I can't sit here and tell you exactly because I haven't tested that. But they're not under any pressure from the EPA to measure that as long as they stay down below
110 decibels?
I don't know what
Well, this Nordic 117, in the company's website, if you go to Nordic, the manufacturer of this turbine, their basic statement, you can look at the decibel, maximum decibel level in Nordic 117 is 105 decibels. Noise is noise.
That's about
That's
a gunshot, isn't it? I mean, most people here have heard high-powered rifles go off. That's about that how loud it is, isn't it?
Well, I know when I worked on the railroad, we go through air horn testing, and that's about mid-range of the locomotive air horn at 100 feet. I'm not saying it's directed or directional like an air horn, like a locomotive, because that is directional. But I mean, I know from experience, when it hits tree lines, it's a whole different deal. And in the wintertime, and high humidity, wind speed, there's going to be people's homes that are going to be extremely affected by this noise. And if it's anything like this, I don't know what people are going to do. It's not going to be good. You made an interesting point, is that last night was like the people that'll leave first are renters. Yeah, that is it. Man, if you run down the food chain, who's going to leave first? It's not the homeowner. So if you're renting a piece of property to somebody, expect that piece of property to go vacant when this happens. I mean, just things are going to happen.
So that in the school district where my son lives, that's who left first. Two renters, they're out of there. They get 30 days notice to the landlord. I'm leaving, they're gone. That's her school district, and you get less people. It comes back to me because of the experience of my son. Noise is not just noise. Night noise, if you can't sleep, is different than day noise. You can turn your radio on, you can turn the TV program on, mom and dad at the house can turn on a radio, you can turn on a fan, you can suppress that noise a little bit in the house during the day. But at night, when you want to lay that head down that pillow and you want to get some sleep, and that thing's a roaring at you, and it's a thumping at you, there's no place to go, folks. You can't put the pillow on you. My granddaughter put muffins on her ears. She was at a tractor pull the summer that they were still trying to live in their house, and the tractor goes by, and my other grandkids have these muffins they put on to protect their ears. So she asked her dad, can I take Alex's muffins with me and sleep with them on? Because when they put them on a tractor pull and that tractor goes by, it really does muffin a lot. Now, folks, I don't think that the kids should have to sleep with muffins on their ears to try to keep the sound out. And they tried it, but it really didn't help enough they got that low frequency noise comes right through. It's something you can't keep out. I have a question here. Yes.
Yeah, I think you said it before, what would you describe the noise as? Like a,
My son describes it, and the 10 people that do it describes it as a diesel truck parked outside your bedroom with and then idling the engine and then forcing the boom, boom, like you did at the race car ready to take off. And every one of them increases in pulsation is when that blade's going by the thing, and that forces that sound further into the house.
so
And
diesel
this is
truck,
the effect of the blades. The sound is one sound waves, so the sound waves are coming, and then the blade comes by, they push that wind a little bit further and a little bit further. And because of the positioning, I believe that my son's house is positioned to where the next one joins that sound, and it comes into his house, and it's even more. It's like I described that pebble in the lake. You throw one big rock in the lake and you get away. You throw another one, if you throw it just the right amount, it makes a bigger wave. You can throw the fourth one in and the fifth one in, and you can time it just right, those waves get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I
you
think
say
that's
how
what's
many
happening to the
surround
sound.
his house?
What's that?
How many surround his house?
He has 4. When he was calling the wind turbine people to shut him down, they had to call the wind turbine folks to shut down the one that was 2,200 feet from his house before it was
What's the
installed.
closest one?
1665. 1665 feet,
From,
which is beyond the setback in the county here. So they're legal putting that close to his house.
that's the closest.
Is he on the east side or the west side?
That's all right. The closest one is straight north of him. Straight north of his house in his backyard. You can see the one in the backyard. You look straight north on this one. This one here, you look straight north. That's the closest one. But he has, when you look out the front door, you see the other 5. You see out here. So he's surrounded. He's surrounded by wind turbines. They're all far enough to make the setback lines. They struggle trying to figure out a way to stay in their house. They love that house, folks. So they all moved into the living room of the house. He had his son and his daughter and his wife, and they moved to the living room because that was the quietest room in the house. But you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to move your bedroom, move your furniture out of your house, and try to sleep in the living room of your house. So that's when they finally gave up and said, this is crazy. We got to do it. We can't stay in this house. The whole family can't sleep in the same bedroom. And so they decided that they were going to move to that double up tree.
Has there been any ill effects to livestock due to these things? Could you tell about that?
Last night I talked a little bit about their dog. They got a shepherd dog. My grandson plays football. He's in the 4th grade, tackle football. The dog would chase around the yard, and my grandson could literally tackle that dog, and the dog would never bite him. The dog was a very docile dog. But he could pull his tail, he could do anything to tackle that dog, and that dog would never bite. But after the wind turbine industry came in and started his wind turbine, that dog would then. If he would nip at people, it changed his personality. And I know you're looking at me like you're nuts. A dog gets older and they get a little beam and they do a little this and do a little that. That might be, folks. But I'm telling you, that dog would have never bit my grandson when I was watching him, and I thought he was crazy. That dog would run by, and that kid would just literally tackle that dog, and the dog would do nothing. I'm going to tell you another story about there's a person in the area that boarded horses. He had 10 horses. He was paid to take care of these horses. When the wind turbine people showed up and the wind turbine started, these horses went off and feed. They would walk to the front of the pasture and they'd stay there, and they would not eat. The owners of those horses came to the owner and said, "What are you doing to my horses? The horse is losing weight. What are you going to do about it?" "I don't know." He said, "I don't know what's causing it. I haven't changed feed. They tested the hay. They tested the corn for aflatoxin. They tested this. They tested that. They tested the water. Nothing. Veterinary can't find out anything." So the owners of the horse took those horses away and put them someplace else. The horses gained that weight back. They started to breathe. How can you prove that that horse was the cause of the wound? I don't know. I can't do that. I ain't got enough money to do that. How do you prove that? So the wind turbine industry's got multiple stories like this that you hear about things. How do you prove that? And what newspaper's going to listen to you and tell you you ought to shut their windmills down for a horse? It ain't going to happen, folks. We got to shut it down because of the health issues of the human beings in this country. We can't get it shut down because of the health issues of human beings. I would like to do that quicker than I try to prove that there's some horse that couldn't eat, or some dog that gets a little grumpy over the whole thing. I'll tell you another story about my son's dog. They never took this dog in a car. It was always a house dog or out in the garage, very seldom even in the house. My son, when he moved his offices to Ogden, Illinois, he thought one day, I'll just take that dog to town with me, and he did. That dog went in my son's office, he crawled underneath his chair in the office and slept, and slept, and slept. And he shook that dog, and he took that dog home, and the next day that dog was standing right by my son's truck. He wanted to go back to that office. He wanted to go back to sleep, and he did. And the next day that dog slept and slept and slept. And now, every time my son gets in that car, that dog was in that car. That tells me that dog gets a hell of a lot more sleep, pardon the language, in my son's office, 5 or 6 miles from where he's getting home. Now, the wind people will tell you, how do you know that dog didn't chase a skunk half the night or chase a possum half the night? He was just over time. How do you do that? How do you prove that? I don't think it can be done. And I don't want to prove these, what I'm talking about with the animals. I want people to come and complain about not getting sleep, and I want people to get the attention and not the livestock industry. There's some things we haven't talked about is straight current. I don't know how many of you folks have cattle. I don't know how many folks have hogs. I have both, but I have dealt with straight current in a hog barn. And straight current in a hog barn, if a hog gets a little bit of a nip when it wants to get a drink, it'll go off feed. If it goes off feed, it won't produce pigs properly. It may even abort pigs. If a cow is in a stanchion, and that stanchion gets a little straight current, it's going to back off that stanchion, it's going to go off milk, it's not going to eat properly, it's going to mess up everything in a cow. And can you imagine, every one of these turbines has underground lines leading from the turbine to the substation here, substation there. You can't tell me that all these lines are perfectly coated, and those power lines, they get a little short in the line, they're going to follow a water line, they're going to follow a telephone line, they're going to follow maybe some drain lines. You all got real water supply out here. All the water supply lines, they've got copper lines laying next to the plastic lines. If they're straight current, they can follow that copper line to the next house and then go someplace. That's an issue that hasn't even been addressed. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to worry about straight current. I'm not going to worry about shallow effect. I'm not going to worry about a bunch of these things. I don't even worry about shallow effect coming through the house. You can put a shade in that house. But by God, we can't protect the health of these people if they can't get any rest. And to me, that's the biggest issue, is the health issue that we're going to find out with these people that live close to these things. If the World Health Organization thinks it ought to be a mile and a quarter, maybe we'll listen to them. Maybe we'll do some research to that effect and prove that sleep deprivation within a mile and a quarter is a focus point. The wind industry uses 3 words: deny, deflect, and defer. Deny that there's a problem, and who's done that before? The tobacco industry and mesothelioma and the other industry. Deflect, say it isn't our problem, it has to be something else. That dog is going to get old. And defer. Defer to the regulatory agency. It's their problem to regulate us. We're following all the rules. So think about that. Deny, deflect, and defer. That's what the tobacco industry, that's what the mesothelioma people did, and that's what the asbestos people did for years and years and years, until the science industry, the science got behind it and proved that asbestos is bad for you, tobacco is bad for you. And we still have a lot of people that don't believe tobacco is bad for you, and some people it isn't. Some people can smoke a pack a day and die or run over by a car. They can live to 85 years old, but there's other people that get lung cancer, and I think that's well proven that if you smoke a pack a day, you're probably going to have some lung problems. My dad was one. He smoked a pack a day of Lucky Strikes and died of emphysema, had to carry the oxygen tank around with him and everything else. So I think science is right. I think smoke is bad for you. Now, he's got some brothers that live to be 85, and they smoke just as much as my dad. But different people are affected different ways.
Is there a certain position they have to, I'm just curious. When they put these turbines up, are they like facing like northeast?
They rotate.
Wow.
The whole thing rotates on top to catch the wind, so they catch the south wind, north wind, that. They rotate these.
So they rotate?
They rotate to catch the wind, yeah. Yeah, they aren't set a certain way. The entire mechanism will turn and rotate. And that's all controlled by the control tower, the control rooms. So they have little spinners that can tell you which way the wind direction is from. So they just start turning these, and there might be in his particular wind turbine, it's about 10 miles from one end to the other. 10 miles away, the wind might be a little bit different. So they turn those things to catch the most wind that they can, and then they try to get them going. And then if that can turn to 17 miles an hour, then they'll turn that one on and produce electricity, but 110 miles away, it might only be going 5 miles an hour. You know, wind currents are funny. They aren't the same everywhere. So they control that, to turn these things on one at a time, and to bring in that power generation as best they can. If the grid doesn't want any power, they won't produce it because they don't want to wear them out. If the grid calls for power, they'll send the power. And if they don't have a contract for extra power, they may not produce it. That's all the company decision. That's all Commonwealth Edison. That's all the other power companies that's taking this power generated by this. Usually it's put into the grid. You don't know where that electricity goes. Hell, it might be used in New York. You don't know. Once it gets in the grids on these lines, they might take it to Cincinnati. They might take it to Chicago. You don't know where that power that finally is generated is going. They might take it to the East Coast. Once it gets into the grid, and hard to tell where it goes. There's a proposal now to build cross-country lines from the state of Kansas to the state of Pennsylvania. And they're going to use wind turbine to do DC current, which can't even be tied to the grid, and that's another whole problem, because all of the power companies now have got alternating currents, AC current. The wind industry is proposing that they build cross-country lines from the state of Kansas because there's no people out there that can put these things up on the mountainside and take that power and then use transmission lines all the way to the East Coast. They get the subsidy up here in Kansas to put all these things up. They get subsidies to build cross-country lines. When that electricity gets to Pennsylvania, then they want Pennsylvania and New York and Massachusetts to do the conversion from DC current to AC current. And those poor states out there, if they ever buy into that program, they'll be paying a buku amount of money for an undependable source of electricity that's going to be green, but it's not going to be good.
But don't you think we have to come up with something? Because we have a friend that works at Davis Vesey. He's worked there for years. And he's told us within the next 8 to 14 years, we are going to be out of power.
Personally, I think they need to be looking at nuclear. We haven't built a new nuclear plant
That's
in a
what
long
they
time.
don't want because of what happened.
David Bessie is nuclear.
Coal,
Yes, it is. Oh, yeah, it is nuclear, but we don't.
natural gas.
The United States is going to build it more because what is done over stuff.
Whatever we build, it should be economically feasible. It shouldn't be 75 rate for the subsidy and then not produce electricity when we need it. If you build a coal-fired plant, if you build a natural gas power plant, if you build a nuclear plant, you can run that thing any day of the year you want to and produce electricity. If you build a wind power plant, like I said earlier, they produce the least amount of electricity, so you're building all this money.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying we need to come up with something.
Yeah, we should. They've done wind turbines for over a decade in Australia. They have a surplus of electricity right now. They've got all kinds of side effects, and now they're looking into like batteries. They're looking into a lot of different things, but they've not. Countries around the world have not been successful.
We're just totally using it.
Okay. That's not what the meeting's about. I understand, we do have problems. But who would like to see this company come back and talk to us? Who would like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right now, we've talked to Manning. She's going to ask for that. She is Senator Manning, Gail Manning. We have to write to her. We have to write to, Dennis has a wonderful website. Has everybody been on Greenwich.com? Have you been there? Who hasn't been there? Okay, you got to get on, because Dennis has created a wonderful website for us to use. He's the guy behind the camera.
Yes. Yeah.
Has anybody in this room ever seen anything on national TV in opposition to the wind industry? Has anybody seen it? Now, how can I be here for a meeting and know that there's 10 families in Remaining County that got to move out of their house? How can I know that the subsidy is horrible? Why don't the press focus on that a little bit? The wind industry's got in the past, folks. We need to question our representative, our congressman. Why are we dumping this much money into a cylinder? There was a few bad press on cylinder. They went broke. They never sold the Senate panels. A lot of those folks had big interest in investment in that. But we never see any bad press on the wind industry. They've gotten a free pass for years and years and years, and now they're bleeding us dry with all their subsidies, and it's a poor energy source. We need to start questioning. We need to ask the press, why don't you ask some questions? Why don't you ask some of these guys to get a camera in front of these guys? Why do they get the pass? I don't understand that. And I have sent letters to a lot of the press, and they don't respond. I sent letters to Bill O'Reilly. I've sent letters to Megan Kelly. I've sent letters to Bill O'Reilly's mattershell.com. Nothing. They don't respond. It's a free pass, folks. Somebody's got to get up and get to say. And maybe there's only one person of any notoriety that's opposed to the wind industry, and that's Donald Trump. And I've sent him letters, and he don't like it because of aesthetics. He don't like it because they build too close to his resorts. He don't like it for other reasons. But I never heard him say he didn't like it for the health reasons that I want to be opposed to it. So, question your representative, and let's get this thing public, and let's get talking about it.
And our property value will go down. Our property value will go down, and that's sad. So we have to fight. And if anybody needs a website or any papers, I have them. You know, the website and how to get to the the number. You have to write on Dennis's website. It talks about just exactly how to do this. We've got to use the number. We've got to talk to the Ohio Power Sighting Board and use the senator's name or the sighting board person that's on board. We have to write personal letters to each one of them, not just one blank letter. And it can go on. You can go ahead and read all the comments, but we've got to do our work. We don't want to be lazy Americans. We don't want to be asleep. I've been asleep too long, and I'm done sleeping.
Why don't we pass it around?
Yeah, go ahead. Just pass it around.
My son was probably an easy target because they did respond to him 51 times and tried to place him. If he would have asked the wind turbine industry for a $50,000 settlement, they probably would have wrote the check to keep my son quiet. But he's not that kind of kid. He believes that this is wrong, and he has been a crusader. He's been on the internet, and he's been doing a lot of stuff. What I'm doing here this evening is because I've seen my son sacrifice a lot for what his family and what his thing has been through. So don't drop the ball, folks. If we want to continue on getting taken advantage of by the wind turbine industry, go home and do nothing. But if you and your neighbors are tired of it and you think it's time to stand up and get something done, then please do like I do it and give a little time, a little effort. Call your neighbors. You've all got neighbors all around this country. Call them and ask them if they got any problems in your area. And if they do, tell them to call the press. Tell them to call the people that's got enough guts to stand up and complain to the local press. We see none of that, folks. They've been able to buy silence for a long, long time, and I'm pretty much tired of it after what they've done to my son. I think it's time for the public to speak up and to talk up and to get this thing stopped before we get more and more people affected. I'm going to quit with that. I want to thank you guys for letting me.
Write your congressman, write your senators. If you don't know who they are, just believe me, don't
some of these wind turbine places. She's written a book. It's published. It is anti-wind big time. Everyone should get a copy of this book. If you don't get a copy of it, go to the website, order yourself a book, read it, and talk to your neighbors about it. She's a medical doctor. She has documented some of the problems of the health problems of these people that live within the wind turbine industry. And most of the wind turbine farms will make fun of her because it's anecdotal. You didn't do the research of taking that grandmother out to someplace else that didn't have a wind turbine, so she would have got diabetes if she moved someplace else. How in the hell do you do that, folks? How do you move these people to another location in circumstances and a lot of those don't, but they all got problems. So read the book, go to the website, and think about what's in this book.
What's the name of the book, Phil?
Wind Turbine Syndrome by Nina Pierpont. Last name is spelled T-I-E-R-P-O-N-T. Nina Pierpont. Wind Turbine Syndrome. If you don't do anything else, type it into the computer and do some checking on it. Yes, sir.
There's never said anything about something getting water off this board.
No.
Or did you ever get anything from the
When he moved to Champaign, Illinois, he was an engineer. He got a job with Fulton Company. Fulton Company had a contract with the wind turbine people to do surveys. So indirectly, my son got income from the wind turbine industry to do some surveying, but it was through his contracts, through his boss. He had nothing to do with it. And when he went on his own, he didn't do anything with the wind company. He has not got a single dime from the wind industry or anyone opposed to the wind industry. It isn't economically.
and the people that are for this seem to be saying we're getting royalties off of this thing. And all
The
this stuff.
landowners will be getting royalties. The township usually gets the roads fixed. The counties get permitting income per wind turbine. So there's lots and lots of money that lots of people get in the county, but my son is not one of them. And if you're not a landowner that has a wind turbine on, you're not getting any, unless the wind turbine people come to you and say, I'm going to be opposed to it, and they have done some adjoining landowners, if there's a right of way going over them or something, and they've got some. My son did have I call it a exit ramp. When they build these things, the road intersections are never big enough to get the turbine to the blades of the turbine. So they build these on-ramps at some of these county roads. My son had one of those. They put it in after the wind turbine's up, they picked up the dirt all the way and tried to reestablish that corner of the property. That's all they got. But that was done before he realized how noisy they were. And believe me, if he could give that $5,000 back, he would in an instant.
Is the money that you do get, is that tax?
Yes, yeah, it's like a oil royalty. It's like a oil royalty or a lease, an oil lease. I don't know how many of them are in this county, but it's like an oil lease income. But I'll guarantee you one thing, if you have leased your property to a wind turbine company, that is transferable. And some other company may come in and buy those leases, and you'll have to honor those leases as much as you lower royalties. And they have some of the stiffest language. It's the most transferable. If you try to get out of that lease, you better have a dang good lawyer because you can't get out of them. They have ironclad clauses in there you can't get out of them. So wind company can come in and they accumulate some of this property in order to build wind turbines, and they don't get enough, so they sell those leases to somebody else, and that's going on all over the nation too. Because of all the subsidy they had, there's companies that thought they could build wind turbines, and they start leasing property, they put together 10,000 acres, but they can't get the money to build wind turbines, so they'll sell those leases to another company. That company does have the connections to get the construction done, and it's big money, guys. It just rolls on. As long as the federal government's willing to put in these subsidies, it's going to be a problem.